I need exactly 5,026 paying subscribers within a 1 year's time to make $1 million revenue. Hey everyone, and welcome back to A Hot Mess Builds an Empire. I'm Tabitha Bear. I'm the hot mess building her empire. And today we're talking about making $1 million. I have said before on this channel, and I've said it in TikToks and Reels, that one of my major goals is to have 1 year where I make $1 million. And I don't necessarily mean that in terms of salary. I'm talking about revenue, which we'll talk about that later. But a big goal is to just say, hey, I made $1 million this year. I run $1 million company. It's a dream, right? And, it's one of those things that I thought was so impossible when I was younger. I grew up so poor, and I had parents who were living paycheck to paycheck barely. I am married to someone who also lived a very similar childhood of living paycheck to paycheck barely with a single parent. It's just one of those things where you do the math, right? Where it's like, oh, if you make X amount of money, if you make $60,000 a year, it'll take you this many years to have made pre-tax $1 million. And usually it was something like, I remember growing up, it was like, well, if you have a high school diploma, it'll take you 30 years to make $1 million. And then if you get your bachelor's, it would take you 20 years to make $1 million. Like, it was all these things that were like pressured on you and statistically thrown at you when you're growing up and you're looking at schools or not looking at schools or going to tech schools or whatever. And you're just kind of like, Mom, no, it's not going to happen for me. And somewhere in the back of my head, I've always held on to that dream where I was like, no, I'm going to have $1 million company. And I did a lot of reverse engineering from the $1 million marker to get to the point of saying, I know that I need 5,026 subscribers to make $1 million in a year. And that doesn't seem that high, right? Now, this comes from the price point for Beacon is going to be $199 annually. And there's literally so many reasons behind this price point. The first is I'm part of a lot of, like communities for tech founders. I've been reading a lot, and one of the first things they say is like, don't price yourself too low. Because especially when you're bootstrapped, you want to know that you're able to cover not just the cost of right now, but the income and cost of what happens when you start making more money. And this is true. When you have an app, there are lots of coding programs and APIs and AI integrations and stuff like that that are free to a point. If you start doing well, it starts charging you. And it starts charging you more the more traffic you have, the more money that you're making, like such as Revenue Cat. Okay, Revenue Cat is somebody that kind of helps you process payments for both Apple Store and Google Play Store. And after you start hitting monthly tracked revenue thresholds, which I think it's $2,500 per month, they start charging you, I believe, a 1% fee to process your payments. So everybody gets a cut, right? Everybody gets their money. Even with being on both Google Play Store and the Apple App Store, they charge 15% of what it is that you're taking in. So everybody gets a piece of the pot. And to run the app itself, everybody gets a little piece of the AI integration, the APIs, this, that, and the other, to the point where that $199 is nickel and dime down to a different kind of profit margin, which then goes right back into paying for the app. So I have a couple of goals that I'm going to share a few of them here. So the first goal is to hit 75 paying subscribers within 1 year. And that number is to break even. That number is to make sure that the app is starting to pay for itself. And then it starts to get into the territory of once more paying users step up, there's more cost affiliated with running the app because there are more people using stuff, right? And so I did a lot of math and I did use the deep research from Claude to help me cross-reference tons of tech startups, tons of price points for other apps out there that are charging a similar amount. And, what does that look like? Especially because I want it to be a premium experience. This is not something where it's just like, hey, here's my presets for your photos and you pay a one-time fee. This is something that would be actively updated all the time and is always HIPAA and GDPR compliant, is always updated with the latest visas available to you based on your passport that you have. It's going to be connected to government APIs so that this way, if there's any type of travel, what's the word I'm looking for? Travel advisory. If there's any type of travel advisory, you're getting it real time. Like there's all these things that are going to be going on and everybody needs to be paid, right? So the $199 is significant in the sense of it lets me pay everybody and also have money left over to run the business, right? Like the whole point is that this is a business. It's a for-profit business. So 75 gets me to break even on everything for 75 users. After that, it starts to go up a little bit, but there starts to become a profit margin. And the goals then moving forward are then, to hit 100 paying subscribers because then you hit 3 digits. Then it's several hundred subscribers. I think it's at about 250 paying subscribers. I'll be able to hire help. So I'm not even going to be paying myself. I'm going to be hiring someone to help me with social media management, marketing, that kind of thing, like the stuff that I don't mind doing, but would be so much better if somebody else did it. So I would hire someone for that. And then it's once I hit, 1,000 paying subscribers, the comma, that's the goal, is to hit the comma, which I literally called that goal the comma. That's what that goal is called. It's called the comma. And once I hit 1,000 subscribers, I will have enough money to have a developer on retainer to pay them well and to make sure I can have them for at least 30 hours a month. And, and that's just sort of like the beginning threshold of starting to build my team. The rest of the money is going right back into the app, making sure that everything is compliant, making sure that everything is completely up to date, making sure that I am able to pay all the fees for being on all these different platforms, right? So it's reverse engineered from $1 million, but there's a reason behind the $199 is basically what I'm getting at. And, I found it very interesting. There's a whole thing about Apple's App Store and Google's Play Store for whether or not you choose to use your own payment method or whether or not you're choosing to use their app system for payment method. And it's quite conflicting, actually. So the reality behind this, and I'm either oversimplifying it and missing some details, so I apologize, but basically the gist is, so this is really important if you want to start an app and you want to be featured on the App Store and the Google Play Store, is they charge 15% of whatever it is that you're bringing in, right? And I get it. You're being hosted on a big platform. You have your app there. It's living there. They host it there. They market it there. You're on lists, whatever. But you can choose to use something like Stripe. Now, the thing is they make it very difficult for you to be able to do that. And there's a lot of technological jargon behind it. And I'm not going to go into that aspect of it because I am still learning it, but also I don't want to bore you with it, with what I do know. But basically, they make it very, very, very difficult for you to use your own in-app payment processor. And there's even like legal actions out there for Apple and Google to be the only payment processor that you're using when on their app store. So, as of right now, they don't have a say in that. But it's still something that's like actively ongoing between both Google and Apple, trying to make it where they're the only ones that can process the payments through the App Store. So it's kind of like, do you want to make it difficult for the user experience in the name of making it easier for you on the back end with your payment processor? Or do you just want everybody to have a really good experience and pay the 15%? I'm opting to pay the 15%. And maybe that will change over time. I think there's just so much in the air about whether or not you will be able to use your own payment processor from a legal standpoint moving forward, that I'm just going to stick with the 15%, because if it switches, I would have to redesign like a huge chunk of the app to accommodate that change. And also, I want my users to have a really good experience. I don't want it to be like, okay, you've downloaded the app and now you have to go to this external site to pay for it, and then you get charged annually from this external thing, such as Stripe or whatever, instead of just being charged from the app on like your Apple Pay or Google Pay or whatever. So there was a lot of back and forth thought process that went into that. And that's ultimately what I have decided on. I just think for the user experience, it would just be so much better. So, but for those of you out there who are developing an app and you don't know that, now you do. And I highly recommend that you look into it to see what is the more appropriate choice for you. I chose to do the 15% from both Google and Apple. But like I said, that is a me choice. The other thing that I don't think a lot of people talk about are the compliances that you need to have for certain apps, especially with my app in particular is dealing with federal and international papers, such as visas for entering countries, copies of your passport, medical information. I need HIPAA and GDPR compliance. I need GDPR compliance for pretty much the EU, the European Union, along with like pretty much all of Europe and a bunch of other countries and continents, right? It's helpful for the United States, but HIPAA is the big one for the United States. And I'm in a gray area, right? Because this is not going to be used as a medical app. Like it's not like if anybody knows what Epic is what a lot of hospitals use. There's also a competing software that I can't think of at this moment in time, but it's very similar to Epic, where basically it's when you download the MyChart app, and you can be at several different health networks and they're all in the MyChart app, and that's how you get all the information from your doctor. That's through Epic. And that's how all the doctors are able to like look at your test results and send you messages. And it's like a really good software. It's like amazing. And they've done so well for themselves. Like I've seen, my husband works for a hospital, and like just seeing what Epic has become over the last 10 years is like, it's very crazy to me. But basically like that is a medical app, right? That has to be HIPAA compliant. And also, I think I just hit the cord of my microphone. So I don't know if this counts as an episode. It only counts, I think, when I hit the microphone, but we'll see what happens. So basically what it comes down to is there's lots of compliances, but I fall into a gray area because there's medical information available on the app, but it's not used for medical purposes as an app completely. It is just something like that stores your medical information. So I have to be HIPAA compliant, GDPR compliant. But the cost of this is crazy. So there's this thing called Supabase, SUPA base. And that is what I would be hosting the app on, basically, to have the users, single sign-on functions, like all that kind of stuff, right? And to be able to host like the RAM that the app runs on and the gigabytes of storage and all of that stuff would be coming from Supabase. And you have to get their team plan to be able to get the HIPAA compliance add-on. The team plan itself is $600 a month. And while that does open me up to having 100,000 active users, which is fantastic because that gives me a lot of leeway, I need to pay for that monthly. Or I'm sure there's an annual feature, but it's $600 a month for this feature. And then also about $400 a month for the HIPAA compliance. And then that doesn't include other compliances that I might potentially need for the different, oh, my voice cracked, that I would need for the different compliances because this is an international app. I'm working with government APIs. I'm working with Google APIs. I'm working with a Claude API for translation of receipts and certain stuff like that. So lots of costs going into it. This is why it's $199 per person. And it's just meant to give that premium, really good experience. But these are all the costs that are affiliated with running an app. And that doesn't include like my GitHub or my Visual Coding Studio or my VS Code or whatever it's called. And then, depending on how many projects you have open and how much memory and how much storage you need and all that jazz, like the cost of running an app goes up. It does. And the developer retainer was really important to me because eventually I'm going to get to a point where I will finish coding this app and it will be done. And I want to hand it off to another developer for them to try and break it through like an alpha test. But also I want them to go through and see if they can like security break it. I want to see what backdoors I have accidentally created and have another developer go through and check my work. So that is someone who I would want, somebody who I trust, right? Somebody who is wonderful and is probably a freelancer, probably a traveler. So if that's something you're interested in doing in the future, let's talk. But I would want this person to be on retainer so that it's like, hey, 30 hours a month is you're helping me do updates. You're helping me do this. You're helping me do that. You're helping me with, like Apple updated their iOS software. Google updated their Android software. So you would, or, Samsung and stuff like that updated their Android software. So like things would need to be updated to make sure that the app is still compliant and running efficiently on new updates for phones. And, there's all these things that eventually it starts to get to a point where I'm going to be handling customer support. I'm going to be handling feedback about the app, like requests for features. I'm going to be handling tickets for things going wrong for the app. Because it is going to happen. And that's not me, like, I'm not trying to be cocky and be like, nothing's going to be wrong with my app. Like, of course, things are going to happen with the app. But, then there's the social media aspect. And then there's the showing up on YouTube aspect. And there's all these things where eventually I have to look at it and go, I'm going to need to hire help. So that's where that additional profit comes in terms of the revenue is going to start to be hiring a team. I did say something about revenue earlier. Listen, I want this to be $1 million company. I see it becoming $1 million company. And I think that's fantastic that it's not like, to me, it's not just a dream anymore. It's just I haven't gotten there yet. And I think that's the best kind of confidence I can give myself in this because I believe in this idea so much. I know that I will become $1 million company. It's just a matter of making the app and getting it out there and distributing it and letting people buy it and sign up for it, whatever. But $1 million a year made does not mean I made $1 million a year, right? That is not my salary. While I would love to do this full time, I currently work a full-time job that is not affiliated with my company at all. And I use whatever money I make, that it goes towards bills and stuff like that. But a lot of it goes towards subscriptions and paying for developing the app right now. And what I would love is for the app to pay for itself first, so that I would technically make more money just from that. Like my salary would then be my salary from my full-time job, because the app would be paying for itself and I would actually make money back. And so that would be a huge, huge win. But then the other thing I want to point out is like revenue is not salary, because like revenue is just what you make for the year. It's everything. But then you have taxes. You have all these fees that I have aforementioned. Then it's paying for your team. Then you can think of, giving yourself like I forget the phrasing, but it's like an ownership payout or something once a month or something like that. And owners withdraw, I think. Owners withdrawal. Anyway, owners something. So I could pay myself once a month. But the money would always be going back into the business initially. Like, I don't have plans to start making a salary until I think I hit like 2,500 subscribers paying, because I want to pay for a team first. And I want to make sure that the app can sustain itself financially. So it's just, that's the reality of it. And while I'm really excited to get to that point where I know that I'm going to make $1 million in at least 1 year for this app, where I can just be like, I'm at $1 million ARR, which ARR is annual recurring revenue. That would put me in such a state of euphoria to hit 5,026 subscribers to get to that number. Now, the thing that sucks about making $1 million is I would no longer be considered a small business with Apple, and they would then start charging me 30% to run my app through their store. They would double their percentage that they're charging me. So lots of give and take on these things. But that's another reason why the $199 annual fee comes into play for users for Beacon, is because eventually, like, I do foresee this doing very well and making a lot of money, which is amazing. But the more money you make, the more you're charged. So the $199 made a lot of sense when you reverse engineered it from $1 million. And it makes a lot of sense that when you hit that $1 million mark, it then covers the additional costs that come with being no longer considered a small business, right? I did use Claude to help me create like a whole spreadsheet and validate my research. And it did deep research for me, which I said before, like I had it check like different, tech companies and magazines and similar. I mean, because I haven't really seen this app exist before, which is really cool. But there's similar styles of apps out there in terms of like price points and stuff like that. So it was really important for me to go like, okay, so this is also a tech startup charging $200 a year for whatever. So what does that look like? And yeah, so it was just like, that has been a lot of my yesterday, was putting together this whole reverse engineering from $1 million. Because a lot of the time I sit here and I go, my goal is to make $20,000 this year from my business, or whatever that looks like. And I never reverse engineered it before, where I was like, this is a breakdown of how I can make that money. And I'm trying so many new things with Nomad Kit Co. that I'm seeing how I'm becoming a better business owner. I'm seeing how I'm thinking differently. I'm seeing this amazing momentum and excitement from myself over this company. And I'm so thrilled about it, right? But the things that I've learned now is like, okay, reverse engineer your financial goal. How do you get to that goal? So the goal is $1 million in revenue in 1 year. How do you get there? What is your price point? What makes sense to charge people? Because you're also paying for XYZ things, 1, 2, 3 things, all that, right? So 5,026 subscribers. I almost started singing the song from Rent. As soon as I said the 5, I could feel the tune coming to the tip of my tongue, and I was like, "Don't do it. Don't do it." But it's 5,000. 26 subscribers is the goal. $1 million is the goal. After I hit that, I'm going to reassess my goals. But at this point in time, that's called big boss level. That's what that goal is called big boss level. And I know I'm going to hit it. I just know I'm going to hit it. And I tell you what, though, when I hit that $1 million ARR, I am definitely going to take my hired team out somewhere where I don't know. I truly don't know where I would take them, but they would be doing so much for me at that point in time and dealing with my crazy and the startup and the chaos of a startup. And just like, in a startup, everybody plays so many roles and wears so many hats because you're figuring it out and you're figuring out how you work together and how the company works, and it's growing and it's making money, and it's like, okay, well, now we need this. So you get to do that too on top of everything else that you do. And there's going to be all these things going on that I would totally take my team out on, like an international trip, like all expenses paid international trip, so that I could thank them properly for helping me get to $1 million. I think that would be like the coolest thing that I could do, and give them like a nice premium experience. And, that would just bring me a lot of joy. Now, I did decide when I hit 10,000 paying subscribers, which this is like a goal I'm saying out loud right now because I think about this kind of stuff all the time. Iceland has a huge, huge place in my heart. It really does. It's the first country I went to outside of the United States and Canada. It was my first big international trip by myself. And the first time I went there, I saw the Northern Lights. The first time I went there, I was experiencing not midnight sun because it was late summer, but really long days. And I felt very grateful that I was there late summer and still caught the Northern Lights. I fell in love with travel doing that. I fell in love with landscape photography doing that. And even though I'm no longer doing the photography thing anymore, there was just something so amazing about that first trip to Iceland that I really want to share that with my family. And I have already promised myself that if I made it to 10,000 subscribers, I would 100% take my family on a paid trip to Iceland so they could experience just the majesty of it, right? Like going on the volcano hikes and going on the glacier hikes and going and experience sort of that Scandinavian culture of being in the hot springs, but with the really cold air around you. Like there's just something so amazing about that for your soul that I just want them to experience all of those amazing things. And Iceland was very expensive. Iceland is very expensive because they import so much for being an island. But there's so many cool things to do there, and to see the geothermal gardens of where they grow their food and what they've sort of established with their geothermal greenhouses and stuff like that, to see that, start to take off in their geothermal energy because they can with the volcanoes, and, sitting on two tectonic plates and being able to walk through the tectonic plates. Like there's just so much really cool shit about Iceland. And it's just been a goal of mine to take, my family to Iceland. And I think that's going to be the big thing when I hit 10,000 subscribers, is I'm going to take my family on a paid trip to Iceland. Yeah, like it's just hitting me right now. And it's like, it's always been a goal of mine to do that. But I think the reality is there, right? And I would just really love to do that, and to give back that way. Yeah. It would be cool. It'd be great to have that bonding. It'd be great to have that family time. And then the other thing is, this is where I get in trouble applying for grants, is I might have had lipstick on my teeth. I don't know. I also have like a pink light on. Who knows? Is I really want to start some type of scholarship. For the longest time, it was like some type of photography school or photography scholarship. But I think I would just love to incorporate this within Girls Who Code, which is like an organization, and help provide like an annual scholarship for somebody to be able to take like a coding class or like whatever that looks like. I'm not sure yet. Or like pay for their textbooks for a year for college or something. You know what I mean? Like just something where I can give to a woman in STEM, particularly coding, and help them. I've also debated doing like paid internships for them to see how a startup works. But after after the $1 million ARR, right? I don't want to be like, oh, I made $5. I'm going to hire everybody and have an intern. Like this is like, it doesn't make sense, right? But I would want to give someone that exposure and help them out, because a lot of women I know who are developers are freelance developers, and or they work for a company, but they also do freelance developing to like be creative and innovative with their own time. And I would just want to expose someone to, hey, here's this dream that I had. I coded it myself, and here's the company that I'm at right now. And this is what I did. And I would want to bring someone under my wing and just like help them out. So those are other things that I think about after I make enough money with the company as to how I could give back, right? Like I always tell my husband, if I was Mackenzie Scott, I would do the same shit that that woman does and just give my money to everybody, to colleges, to Planned Parenthood, to whatever, to just help women with their health care, help women learn, help women be able to be educated and take more on in their lives. And I just think about that kind of stuff all the time. So that is something else that I would do, like outside of the selfish for me taking my family to Iceland. I would also give back to the like women who code, girls who code, and help in some capacity with that. So those are just some things that would happen when I would hit that $1 million ARR and then some. So those are the goals that I have. That's how I reverse engineered the $1 million ARR, and why I got to the price point that I did. And I hope, outside of me rambling about my goals, I hope that reverse engineering discussions were helpful to talk about why it is that I am charging what I am charging. I think it makes sense. I did a lot of math. I did a lot of research. I had Claude do math. I had Claude do research. And it just kept coming out that that price point made a lot of sense, especially as a bootstrapped company. It made a lot of sense to have a slightly higher price point than what you would think, but it also allows me to have that premium experience for my users. So, and that's what I'm after, is a premium experience. The people, my demographic for this app are location independent entrepreneurs. Like they need something that is doing a lot of heavy lifting for them. And you can't have that heavy lifting without a price point being a little bit higher, right? So that's where we're at. Oh, I hit the desk. I haven't hit the actual microphone this video, which makes me very happy. But at the same time, I've hit like 900 other things as if my desk is a drum set. And I've hit all these things. Anyway, just letting you know, if you want to be a beta tester for Beacon when it comes out towards the end of this year, towards the end of 2026, if you would like to be a beta tester, please sign up for the newsletter, link in the description of this video, and it will lead you to like a really beautiful landing page. You just put in your name and your email and you get signed up. Now it is like a newsletter. So it will provide you with some feature updates, what I'm working on, and just kind of like monthly wrap-ups of this is where we're at with the app. But it is the only place I'm sharing where beta testers can sign up and download the app. And I'm having beta testers use the app in exchange for their feedback, in exchange for breaking it. I want you to break it. I want you to find everything that is absolutely wrong with this app and tell me so that I can fix it before I release it to the universe and have people paying for it, right? So that is the whole goal behind the beta testers. I still have to find out the number of how many beta testers I'm allowed to have, but I think it's something like around 1,000. So like, please don't think that like there's a wait list or anything. It's just a wait list for the app itself coming out, not a wait list to be a beta tester. So that's where we're at. Thank you so much for watching day 2 of showing up for 100 days. I hope you have an amazing night, weekend. What is today? Technically Wednesday. I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you have an amazing night. And I will see you tomorrow.